Who is the man who rides past? Tell me a story, Aunt Mary begged Christy as she snuggled behind her sister in the big bed they shared. Tell me a fairy tale. Aunt Mary smiled and wrapped her arms around her little sister in the dark. All Danish children grew up familiar with fairy tales. Hans Christian Andersen was the most famous of fairy tellers, had been in Danish himself. Do you want one about the Little Mermaid? That one had been Aunt Mary's own favorite. But Christy said no. Tell one about the king and the queen. And they had a beautiful daughter. Once upon a time, they had a king. And the queen. Don't forget the queen. And the queen. They lived happily together in a wonderful place. And was the palace named Ameliaburg? Christy asked sleepily. Shh. Don't keep interrupting or I'll never finish the story. No, it wasn't Allenburg. It was a pretend palace. Aunt Mary talked on, making up a story about a king and a queen and their beautiful daughter, Princess Christian. She sprinkled her fairy tale with formal balls, fabulous gold-trimmed gowns, and feasts of pink frosted cupcakes, until Christy's deep, even breathing told her that her sister was sound asleep. She stopped, waited for a moment, half expecting Christy to murmur, "Then what happened?" But Christy was still. Aunt Mary's thoughts thought of the real king, Christian X, and the real palace, Ameliaburg, where he lived, in the center of Copenhagen. How the people of Denmark loved King Christian. He was not like a fairy tale kings who seemed to stand on balconies giving order to subjects, or who stand on golden thrones demanding to be entertained, or looking for suitable husbands for their daughters. The King Christian was a real human being, a man with a generous, kind face. She had seen him often when she was younger. Each morning he had come from the palace on his home jubilee and ridden through the streets of Copenhagen, greeting his people. Sometimes when Aunt Mary was a little girl, her older sister Lizzie had taken her to stand on the sidewalk so she could wave to King Christian. Sometimes he had waved back to the two of them and smiled. "Now you are special forever," Lizzie had told her once, "because you have been greeted by a king." Aunt Mary told her head to the pillow and stared through the partly open curtains of the window into dim September night. Thinking of this, her solemn, lovely sister always made her sad. So she turned her thoughts again to the king, who was still alive, and Lizzie was not. She remembered a story that Papa had told her. Shortly after the war began, shortly after Denmark had surrendered the soldiers, and had moved to an overnight to take their places in the corners. One evening, Papa had told her that earlier he was on an errand near his office, standing on a corner waiting to cross the street, when Christian X came by on his morning ride. One of the German soldiers had turned suddenly and asked a question of a teenage boy nearby. "Who is that man who rats pies over every morning in his horse?" a German soldier asked. Papa said he smiled to himself, amused that the German soldier did not know. He listened while the boy answered. "He's our king," the boy told the soldier. "He's the king of his Denmark." "Where is his bodyguard?" the soldier asked. "What do you know what the boy said?" Papa had asked Aunt Mary, who was sitting on his lap. She was little, but she was only 7 years old. She shook her head, waiting for hear the answer. The boy looked right at the soldier and she said, "All of Denmark is his bodyguard." Aunt Mary shivered. It sounded like a very brave answer. "Is it true, Papa?" the boy said. The thought for a moment. He always considered the question very carefully before he answered them. "Yes, it is true. Any Danish citizen would die for King Christian to protect him." "You too, Papa?" "Yes, and Mama? Mama too." Aunt Mary shivered. "Then I would too, Papa, if I had to." They sat silently for a moment. From across the street, Mama watched Aunt Mary and Papa, and she smiled. Mom had been crocheting that evening 3 years ago. A lacy edging of the pillowcase, part of Lizzie's crochet, Her fingers moved rapidly, turning the thin white thread into an intricate narrow border. Lucy was a grown-up girl of 18 then, about to be married to Peter Nelson. When Lucy and Peter married, Mama said Aunt Mary and Christy would have a brother for the very first time. Papa, Aunt Mary said finally into the silence, sometimes I wonder what the king wasn't able to protect us. Why didn't he fight to the Nazis so that they wouldn't come to Denmark with their guns? Papa sighed. We were such a tiny country, he said, and they were such an enormous enemy. Our king was wise. He knew how few soldiers Denmark had. He knew that many Danish people would die if we fought. In Norway they fought, and Mary pointed out. Papa nodded. They fought very fiercely in Norway. They had those huge mountains for the Norwegian soldiers to hide in. Even so, Norway was crushed. In her mind, Aunt Mary pictures Norway as she remembered in a map at school, up above Denmark. Norway was pink on the school map. She imagined the pink strip of Norway crushed by a fist. Are the German soldiers in Norway now? The same as here? Yes, in Holland too, and in Belgium and France. But not in Sweden, Aunt Mary announced, proud that she knew so much about the world. Sweden was blue on the map, and she'd seen Sweden, even though she had not been there. Standing next behind Uncle Harry's house, north of Copenhagen, she had looked across the water, the part of the North Sea that had called the Kattegat, the land to the other side. That is Sweden you are seeing, Uncle Harry told her. You are looking across to another country. That is true. Sweden is still free, and now 3 years later it was still true. But much else had changed. King Christian was getting old, and he had been badly injured last year in a fall of his horse, faithful old Jubilee, who had carried him around Copenhagen so many mornings. For days they thought he would die, and all of Denmark had mourned. But he hadn't. Christian Ek was still alive, and it was Liz who was not. It was her tall, beautiful sister who had died in an accident 2 weeks before her wedding. In a blue carved truck in the corner of this bedroom, Aunt Mary could see his shape even in the dark. Were folded Lisa's pillowcase with their crocheted edges, her wedding dress with its hand-embroidered neckline unworn, and the yellow dress that she had worn and danced with, its full skirt flying at the party celebrating her engagement. Mama and Papa never spoke of Lizzie. They never opened the trunk, but Aunt Mary did. From time to time, when she was alone in the apartment, she touched Lizzie's things gently, remembering her soft-spoken sister who had looked forward so to marriage and her children of her own. Red-headed Peter, her sister's fiancé, had not married Edward in the years since Lizzie's death. He had changed a big deal. Once he had been like a fun-loving older brother to Aunt Mary and Christy, teasing and tickling, always all sorts of foolishness and pranks. Now he still stopped in the apartment often, but his greetings to the girls were warm and smiling, and he was usually in a hurry, taking quietly to Mama and Papa about things. Aunt Mary didn't understand. He was no longer singing the nonsense songs that he had once made Aunt Mary and Christy shriek with laughter, and he had never wingled anymore. Papa had changed too. He seemed much older and very tired, defeated. The whole world had changed. Only the fairy tales remained the same. They lived happily ever after, Aunt Mary recited, whispering into the dark, completing the fairy tale for her sister, who slept beside her, one thumb in her mouth.